Think about the last time you bought something online at midnight that you absolutely did not need. You felt a surge of excitement in the moment, but that feeling vanished the second the confirmation email hit your inbox. It is not a lack of willpower making you spend, but a biological glitch in your brain that giant corporations have spent billions to exploit. Most people believe the only solution is more discipline or a stricter budget, yet these traditional methods almost always fail. There is a hidden psychological switch that can shut down your impulse to spend before the regret even has a chance to set in. Once you learn how to flip this switch, you will finally break the cycle of consumerism and take back control of your future. To flip this switch, we first need to understand why your brain was designed to keep it on in the first place. For thousands of years, our survival depended on reacting instantly to the world around us. This ancient programming is still running in the background of your modern life. Our ancestors lived in a world of extreme scarcity where resources were rare and fleeting. If they found a patch of berries or a source of protein, they had to consume it immediately. Waiting meant losing out to a competitor or potentially starving to death. This survival instinct is controlled by the limbic system, the most primitive part of the human brain. It is responsible for our deepest emotions and our drive for immediate gratification. It prioritizes the now because, for most of history, the later was never guaranteed. Today, the landscape has changed, but our biological hardware remains exactly the same. We are no longer scanning the horizon for food, but we are scanning our feeds for the next big deal. The same rush that helped us survive the wilderness is now being triggered by a flash sale. Retail giants and tech companies spend billions of dollars studying these primitive triggers. They know that if they can create a sense of urgency, your logical brain will go offline. Features like one-click ordering and limited-time discounts are digital traps for your limbic system. Each time you make an impulsive purchase, your brain rewards you with a massive spike of dopamine. This chemical hit creates a temporary feeling of euphoria and accomplishment. Unfortunately, this feeling is fleeting by design, forcing you to seek out the next purchase to feel it again. This creates a constant state of internal friction between who you are and who you want to be. Your logical mind has long-term goals like financial freedom and peace of mind. However, your impulsive brain is constantly shouting for the immediate satisfaction of a new gadget. The modern economy is essentially built on the exploitation of this specific biological vulnerability. We are living in a world engineered to keep us in a loop of constant consumption and regret. To break free, we have to bridge the gap between our ancient instincts and our modern reality. This biological gap exists because your brain is still running on ancient software designed for a world of scarcity. Your limbic system is wired to grab resources whenever they appear to ensure your survival. It sees a limited-time offer and reacts with the same urgency as a hunter-gatherer finding a rare source of food. Back then, this survival instinct was a superpower that kept our ancestors alive through harsh winters. In the modern world, however, this same instinct has become a liability that drains your bank account. You are fighting a prehistoric battle against a digital landscape designed to make you lose every single time. Every notification and flash sale is a calculated strike against your dopamine receptors. When you see a Buy Now button, your brain releases a chemical reward before you even touch the product. This creates a feedback loop where the act of purchasing becomes more addictive than the item you are actually buying. Corporations have spent decades perfecting the art of removing every bit of friction from the buying process. They know that if they can make the transaction happen in seconds, your logical brain will never have a chance to intervene. By the time your prefrontal cortex wakes up, the money is gone and the regret begins to settle in. This loss of control is not a personal failure, it is the intended result of a highly sophisticated marketing machine. We are being conditioned to believe that our happiness and status are always just one more purchase away. This constant pursuit of the next high leaves us feeling empty and financially exhausted. To reclaim your power, you must understand that your biology is being used against you like a weapon. You cannot rely on simple willpower when the odds are stacked so heavily in favor of the house. You need a specific, repeatable strategy that forces your brain to switch from emotion back to logic instantly. The realization that your brain is being hacked is the first step toward reclaiming your freedom. You cannot win a war against billion-dollar algorithms using only your fading willpower. It is time to stop fighting your instincts and start outsmarting the system that exploits them. Neuroscientists have discovered a critical window of time where the brain can shift its processing power. This transition happens when we move from the emotional heat of the moment to a state of cool reflection. By intentionally creating a gap, you force your logical mind to re-engage with the situation. This gap is where the prefrontal pause comes into play, acting as a circuit breaker for your impulses. While your limbic system demands immediate action, your prefrontal cortex requires time to calculate long-term consequences. This simple delay is the only thing standing between a wasted paycheck and financial security. The most effective way to trigger this shift is a mandatory 24-hour waiting period for every non-essential purchase. This is not about telling yourself no, but rather telling yourself not right now. This subtle shift in language removes the feeling of deprivation and replaces it with a sense of authority. During these 24 hours, the initial dopamine spike that clouded your judgment begins to dissipate. As your neurochemistry stabilizes, the perceived value of the item often drops significantly. You start to see the product for what it actually is, rather than the emotional promise it represented. The digital traps that were designed to catch you in seconds lose all their power when you refuse to play by their rules. One-click ordering and countdown timers become irrelevant when you have a personal policy of waiting. You are essentially building a firewall around your bank account that no marketing tactic can penetrate. This discovery changes everything because it moves the decision-making process from your ancient survival brain to your modern logical brain. You are no longer a passive victim of your own biology or a corporate target. You become the conscious architect of your own spending habits and your financial future. Once you experience the clarity that comes from this pause, you can never go back to blind consumption. The tension between your desires and your goals starts to dissolve as you realize you have the upper hand. The conflict has officially begun, and for the first time, you are the one holding all the cards. This newfound power reveals the hidden cost of every impulsive click you have ever made. It is not just about the money leaving your account, but the mental space being occupied by things you do not truly value. You begin to see the clutter in your life as physical evidence of a battle you were previously losing. The real crisis begins when you try to stop the momentum of a lifetime of consumer conditioning. Your limbic system will fight back with a sense of phantom urgency, making you feel like you are missing out on something vital. This internal friction is the definitive sign that your brain is finally rewiring itself for a new kind of freedom. At the heart of this transformation is a single, irreversible discovery called the prefrontal pause. By intentionally inserting a 24-hour delay into every non-essential purchase, you force the logical part of your brain to re-engage. This simple act of waiting breaks the dopamine loop and allows the emotional fog to lift completely. Once you implement this micro-habit, the power dynamic between you and the retail giants flips instantly. You no longer feel the desperate itch to buy because the illusion of scarcity has been shattered for good. This is the moment where your primitive survival instinct evolves into a strategic advantage that secures your long-term peace. However, knowing the solution is very different from living it in the real world. The first time you try to implement the prefrontal pause, you will likely encounter a wave of internal resistance you did not expect. Your brain has been conditioned for years to seek the quick hit, and it will not give up that habit without a fight. You might find yourself staring at a screen, convinced that if you do not buy that item right now, it will be gone forever. This is the phantom urgency of the limbic system trying to bypass your new firewall. It whispers that this specific deal is the exception to your rule and that waiting is a massive mistake. Friends and family may unintentionally become obstacles as they share their latest finds or pressure you to join in on a shopping spree. They are not trying to sabotage you, but they are still operating within the system you are trying to escape. Their excitement can act as a secondary trigger that makes your 24-hour commitment feel like an eternity. Many people fall into the trap of thinking that small, inexpensive items do not require the pause. You tell yourself that a $5 purchase will not hurt your long-term goals or drain your focus. Yet, these minor exceptions are exactly how the old neural pathways stay strong and active. As you walk away from a potential purchase, you might feel a strange sense of physical restlessness or even irritability. This is essentially a form of dopamine withdrawal as your brain protests the lack of an immediate reward. Understanding that this discomfort is a sign of progress is the only way to push through the initial struggle. Another common error is spending the entire waiting period researching the product or reading endless reviews. Instead of letting your brain cool down, you are keeping the emotional fire burning by staying focused on the object of desire. This keeps the limbic system engaged and makes the final decision much harder than it needs to be. You will soon realize that impulse buying is not just about the things you buy, but about the emotional voids you are trying to fill. Every time you resist the urge, you are forced to face the boredom or stress that triggered the desire in the first place. This realization can be overwhelming because it uncovers the deep roots of your spending habits. The real test comes when a high-ticket item you have wanted for months suddenly goes on a flash sale. The pressure to abandon your strategy becomes immense as the logical brain struggles to justify the savings against the rule. This is where the true battle for your financial sovereignty begins to intensify. You might find yourself negotiating with your own logic, trying to find a loophole in your new rule. Your mind starts whispering that this specific deal is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that justifies an exception. This internal lawyer is incredibly persuasive, using math and false necessity to bypass the firewall you just built. The friction increases when you see friends or colleagues effortlessly acquiring the very things you are pausing on. They might even mock your new discipline, calling it unnecessary or overly restrictive. This social pressure acts as a secondary trigger, making you feel isolated in your quest for financial clarity. The real danger lies in the small purchase trap, where you convince yourself that minor expenses don't require a pause. These tiny leaks are actually the most addictive because they provide frequent, low-cost dopamine hits that keep your impulsive brain in charge. You will soon realize that mastering the small urges is actually harder than resisting the big ones. As you push through these first few failures, you will make a startling discovery about the nature of desire. You'll notice that the intense need for an item usually vanishes completely by the next morning. This realization is your first real victory, proving that the urgency was never about the product, but about a chemical spike that has finally subsided. This realization is a breakthrough, but it also exposes the sheer scale of the psychological warfare being waged against you. Every interface, notification, and personalized ad is a precision-engineered weapon designed to bypass your logic. You are not just fighting a bad habit, you are fighting a global infrastructure optimized for your distraction. When you start using the prefrontal pause, the algorithms notice your sudden hesitation and will often double down on their efforts. You might see the price of that item drop slightly or receive a reminder email within hours of leaving your cart. This is the system sensing a break in the circuit and attempting to re-establish its control over your dopamine levels. The confrontation deepens when you realize that most of your purchases are not for things you need, but for the person you wish you were. We buy the gym gear to feel athletic and the expensive planner to feel organized, yet the feeling disappears the moment the transaction is complete. You are essentially paying for a temporary identity that never actually takes root in your real life. Retailers rely heavily on the scarcity myth to keep your prefrontal cortex offline and your survival instincts active. By creating artificial deadlines and showing low stock counts, they trigger a primal fear of loss that demands an immediate response. Recognizing these tactics as mere theater is the only way to maintain your composure when the countdown clock starts ticking. Modern convenience has become the greatest enemy of your financial and mental clarity. Technologies like one-touch payments and saved credit card info are specifically designed to remove the pain of paying that used to slow us down. Every bit of friction removed from the buying process is a direct attack on your ability to think before you act. To truly master this pause, you must confront the specific emotions that drive you toward the checkout button. For many, shopping is a form of self-medication used to numb the sting of a stressful day or the quiet ache of boredom. If you do not address the underlying feeling, your brain will keep searching for a digital band-aid to cover the wound. This is where the conflict between your current self and your future self becomes most visible. Your current self wants the immediate hit of satisfaction, while your future self will have to deal with the debt and the clutter. The prefrontal pause is the only tool that gives your future self a seat at the table during the decision-making process. As you peel back these layers, you begin to see that your spending habits are actually a map of your deepest insecurities. Each impulsive click is a clue leading you toward a better understanding of your own psychological triggers. The more you investigate these patterns, the more the power of the marketing machine begins to crumble before your eyes. This crumbling occurs because you finally recognize that you aren't buying a product, but a temporary escape from reality. The marketing machine doesn't sell features, it sells the promise of a better, more confident version of you. When you wait 24 hours, that idealized image fades, leaving you with nothing but a piece of plastic or fabric. Facing this reality requires you to confront the specific emotions that drive your hand toward the checkout button. Are you actually looking for a new gadget, or are you just trying to distract yourself from a stressful workday? The prefrontal pause acts as a mirror, forcing you to look at the boredom or loneliness you've been trying to drown out with consumerism. Your brain will attempt to rationalize these impulses by rebranding them as logical investments for your future. It will invent elaborate scenarios where this specific item becomes essential for your productivity or social standing. By identifying these mental gymnastics as they happen, you strip them of their influence over your bank account. This analytical process transforms you from a vulnerable target into a conscious curator of your own environment. You begin to value the space in your home and the balance in your account more than the thrill of the hunt. The confrontation with your own habits is no longer a struggle, but a masterclass in self-mastery and psychological resilience. This masterclass in self-mastery often leads to a dangerous sense of total completion. You feel as though the dragon has been slain and your financial future is permanently secure. For a few weeks, the silence in your shopping cart feels like a definitive victory over the machine. You walk through stores and browse the web with a newfound sense of immunity. The ads that used to scream for your attention now feel like background noise. It appears the journey is over, and you have successfully reprogrammed your brain for a life of intentionality. However, this sense of total control is often the precursor to a devastating and unexpected collapse. All it takes is one night of deep physical exhaustion or a sudden emotional blow to shatter your defenses. In an instant, the logical firewall you built with such care simply ceases to function. You wake up the next morning to an order confirmation email for something you do not even remember wanting. The prefrontal pause was not ignored, it was completely invisible during the heat of the moment. This sudden relapse feels like a total betrayal of the progress you thought you had made. The weight of this failure can be paralyzing, making you feel like a fraud in your own life. You start to believe that the psychological trick was just a temporary band-aid on a much deeper wound. It seems as though the impulsive brain has won the war, leaving you right back where you started. At this point, many people decide to abandon the strategy altogether and accept their fate as a permanent consumer. You might tell yourself that some people are just wired for impulse and that discipline is a lie. The story of your transformation feels like it has reached a disappointing and final conclusion. You sit with the regret of the purchase, staring at the screen and wondering where the logic went wrong. You followed the steps and understood the science, yet the system still found a way to bypass your will. It feels like there is a fundamental flaw in the plan that makes true freedom impossible. But as you prepare to walk away from this experiment, you realize that this failure is actually a coded message. The relapse was not a sign of weakness, but a revelation of a deeper layer of the habit you have not addressed yet. There is one final, hidden mechanism that dictates whether the pause actually holds or breaks. This mechanism is often invisible because it operates in the quiet moments when you think you are safe. You might feel that no matter how long you wait, the urge simply waits with you, growing stronger in the shadows. It seems like the prefrontal pause is just a temporary dam against an endless ocean of desire. At this point, many people decide to give up, accepting that they will always be at the mercy of the next digital notification. The frustration of failing after trying so hard feels worse than the original impulse itself. You might conclude that some people are just born with self-control, while you are destined to remain a victim of the algorithm. But this sense of defeat is actually the final barrier protecting the most powerful part of the habit loop. You have been focusing on the action of buying, while ignoring the silent trigger that starts the countdown. There is a specific mental bridge you are crossing every single time without even realizing it. The real secret isn't just about waiting. It is about what you do with your focus during those 24 hours. You have been trying to fight a fire with a clock, but you haven't looked at the fuel. To truly break the cycle, you must master the one thing the retail giants hope you never discover. That hidden fuel is the narrative of potential gain that your brain builds around every single item. To kill the impulse, you must flip the script and turn the act of rejection into a dopamine-fueled victory. You aren't just waiting out a clock, you are actively reclaiming your mental territory from the digital invader. The retail giants have spent billions making the buy button the emotional climax of your entire online experience. You must hijack this neurochemical reward system by creating a new peak, the delete high. When you finally clear that cart after 24 hours, you must celebrate it as a massive win for your personal freedom. During the prefrontal pause, your primary job is to perform a ruthless audit of the fantasy the product is actually selling. Ask yourself if you are buying a functional tool or just a daydream that will eventually collect dust. By the time the next day arrives, the shiny veneer of the marketing will have dissolved into cold reality. This is where the prefrontal pause transforms from a simple defensive shield into a powerful offensive weapon. You are intentionally reintroducing the friction that modern technology tried so hard to eliminate for its own profit. Every extra click you create between your desire and the transaction is a vote for your own sovereignty. You finally realize that the better version of yourself isn't found in a cardboard box delivered to your doorstep. True self-improvement comes from the quiet discipline of saying no to the things that do not serve your ultimate goals. The moment you stop seeking your identity in objects, the algorithm loses its most powerful hook. Your prefrontal cortex is now fully engaged, scanning every potential purchase with the precision of a master strategist. The primal urgency of the limbic system has faded, replaced by a calm and calculated financial clarity. You are no longer a victim of your own biology, but the conscious architect of your own environment. Every element we have discussed, the dopamine loops, the scarcity tactics, and the emotional triggers, now falls perfectly into place. You see the entire landscape of modern consumerism for what it truly is, a game designed for you to lose. But with the pause as your anchor, you have finally changed the rules of the game forever. The struggle that once felt like an exhausting uphill battle has become a natural and effortless part of your daily routine. You no longer fear the notification or the flash sale because your internal firewall is now impenetrable. This is the moment where the psychological trick transcends being a tactic and becomes a permanent part of your character. The final secret lies in shifting your focus from the object of desire to the inherent value of your own freedom. During those 24 hours, you are not just waiting for a timer to expire, you are actively reclaiming your mental real estate. This shift effectively starves the impulsive fire by removing the attention it needs to survive. By integrating the prefrontal pause, you bridge the gap between your primal survival instincts and your highest human aspirations. The dopamine spikes that once controlled your hand now serve as simple signals for you to step back and observe. You have successfully rewired the circuit, turning a moment of vulnerability into a display of absolute self-governance. The marketing machine loses its grip the moment you realize that your worth is not tied to the items in your shopping cart. Every avoided purchase is a victory for your future self and a testament to your newfound psychological resilience. You are no longer a target to be manipulated, but a conscious architect of your own financial and emotional well-being. This is the ultimate resolution to the cycle of mindless consumption that once drained your energy and your bank account. The prefrontal pause has evolved from a simple psychological trick into a powerful philosophy of intentional living. You now stand at the threshold of a life defined by clarity, purpose, and the profound peace of being truly in control. This newfound clarity transforms more than just your bank statement, it reshapes your entire relationship with the physical world. You begin to notice a surplus of both time and capital that was previously being bled dry by invisible triggers. The clutter in your home begins to thin out, replaced by a sense of breathing room that you have not felt in years. As the weeks turn into months, the prefrontal pause becomes a silent guardian that operates in the background of every decision you make. You are no longer just avoiding a purchase, you are actively investing in a version of yourself that values experiences over possessions. This shift in identity is the ultimate defense against a culture designed to keep you in a state of perpetual wanting. However, mastering your spending is only the first step in reclaiming your cognitive sovereignty from the digital age. The same neural pathways that drive impulse buying are also being exploited by the apps and social platforms you use every single day. If you can pause a purchase, you can also begin to pause the endless scroll that consumes your most precious resource, your attention. To truly protect your mind, you must understand how these same psychological traps are used to steal your focus before you even realize it. The battle for your wallet was just the beginning, and the real war is happening for your time. In our next session, we will dive into the specific mechanics of digital minimalism and how to break the invisible chains of social media addiction.